How Visa and Mastercard quietly control more of the economy than any government. Every time you tap your card to buy coffee, about 2.5 cents disappears. Not to the barista, not to the roaster, not even to your bank. It goes to two companies in New Jersey and New York that you've never thought about, never elected, and can't opt out of. Visa and Mastercard don't lend money. They don't hold deposits. They don't take risk on whether you'll pay your bill. But together, they processed over $14 trillion in payments last year in the United States alone. And on every single one of those transactions, they took a cut. They are, by design, invisible. And that invisibility is worth hundreds of billions. This is the story of how payment networks became more powerful than most central banks, how they've quietly rewritten the rules of commerce, and why almost no one can do anything about it. Let's start with something simple. You buy a sandwich, it costs $12. You tap your Visa card, the sandwich is yours. It feels instant, right, frictionless. But in that single second, 7 different entities just got paid. Your bank, the merchant's bank, the payment processor, the card network, sometimes a gateway, sometimes a third-party acquirer, sometimes a sub-processor you've never heard of. The sandwich shop sees maybe $11.40 hit their account 2 days later. 60 cents is just gone. Now, 60 cents doesn't sound like much, but scale it. Americans made over 180 billion card transactions last year, at an average fee of around 2%. That's nearly $300 billion in total fees flowing through the system annually. Visa alone made $35 billion in revenue last year. Mastercard made $26 billion, not from lending, not from issuing cards, just from standing in the middle. Here's what makes this strange. They're not optional. If you're a business and you want to accept payments in 2026, you accept Visa and Mastercard, full stop. Sure, you could take cash, but cash is disappearing. You could take American Express, but they charge even more. You could try to build your own system, but good luck getting anyone to use it. Visa and Mastercard have spent 50 years making themselves the default infrastructure of the economy. And once you're infrastructure, you're untouchable. So how did two companies end up controlling the rails of global commerce? The answer starts in 1958. Bank of America launches the Bank Americard in Fresno, California. It's the first modern credit card that works at multiple merchants. The idea is simple. The bank fronts the money, the customer pays it back, merchants get more sales, everyone wins. Except, there's a problem. If you're a bank in Texas, you can't issue a Bank Americard. Only Bank of America can. So in 1966, they license it out. Other banks can now issue the card, but they all share the same network. By 1976, it's gone international. They rebrand it, call it Visa. Mastercard follows the exact same path. It starts as the Interbank Card Association in 1966, a consortium of banks trying to compete with Bank Americard in 1979. They rename it Mastercard. For decades, both networks are technically owned by the banks. They're member-run cooperatives, non-profits, at least on paper. But then something shifts. In 2006, Mastercard goes public. In 2008, Visa does the same. Suddenly, they're not cooperatives anymore. They're publicly traded corporations with shareholders, earnings calls, and profit mandates. And here's where it gets interesting. When they were bank-owned, there was at least some internal tension. The banks issuing the cards wanted high fees. The banks signing up merchants wanted low fees. It balanced out, sort of. But once Visa and Mastercard became independent, that tension disappeared. Now both sides of the network, issuing banks and acquiring banks, are their customers, and Visa and Mastercard can charge both. The incentive structure flips entirely. They don't want to compete on price anymore. They want to maximize revenue. And the way you do that is simple. Raise the fees, add more fee categories, and make the system so complex that no one can figure out what they're actually paying. Let's talk about interchange. Interchange is the fee that the merchant S-Bank pays to the cardholder S-Bank every time you swipe. It's set by Visa and Mastercard, not by the banks themselves. In the US, interchange rates range from about 1.5% to 3.5%, depending on the card type, the merchant category, whether you swiped or tapped, whether it's a rewards card, and about 40 other variables. Here's the trick. The card you use determines the fee. If you pay with a basic debit card, the merchant pays less. If you pay with a premium travel rewards credit card, the merchant pays more, but you, the cardholder, don't see this. You just see points accumulating. The merchant sees their margin shrink. And here's the uncomfortable part. Those rewards you're earning, they're not free. They're funded by the merchant fees, which means the business is effectively paying you to shop there. That's not a loyalty program. That's a transfer of wealth from the merchant to the cardholder, facilitated by Visa and Mastercard, who take a cut on both ends. Now let's go bigger. Visa and Mastercard also charge network fees. These are separate from interchange. They're assessed on top of it, and they're non-negotiable. Assessment fees, processing fees, acquirer fees, cross-border fees, currency conversion fees, authorization fees. There are literally hundreds of fee categories, and they change constantly. In 2023 alone, Visa raised fees twice. Mastercard did the same. The average small business owner has no idea what they're actually paying because the fees are bundled. hidden inside processing statements, and labeled with jargon that sounds like tax code. And because Visa and Mastercard control the network, they control the fee structure. There's no competitive pressure. You can't switch to a cheaper network because there isn't one with the same reach. It's a duopoly masquerading as a market. Now, you'd think governments would step in. They have, sort of. In 2010, the US passed the Durbin Amendment, which capped debit card interchange fees at 21 cents plus 0.05%. That was supposed to help small businesses. It did, a little, but only for debit cards, and only for banks with over 10 billion in assets. Credit card fees, untouched. In Europe, regulators went further. In 2015, the EU capped interchange at 0.3% for credit cards and 0.2% for debit cards. Sounds great, right? Except Visa and Mastercard just shifted the fees. They raised scheme fees, processing fees, and cross-border fees to make up the difference. The total cost to merchants barely changed. And here's the deeper issue. Even if a government tries to regulate them, Visa and Mastercard operate globally. They can route transactions through different jurisdictions, restructure fee categories, or just pull out of markets entirely. In 2021, Mastercard threatened to stop processing payments in Pakistan after the central bank tried to cut fees. Pakistan backed down. That's not a corporation. That's a geopolitical force. And it gets weirder. Visa and Mastercard don't just process payments, they also set the rules for how payments work. They decide which businesses can accept cards. They enforce chargeback policies. They determine fraud liability. They control access to the global financial system. If Visa and Mastercard decide they don't want to work with you, whether you're a cannabis dispensary, an adult content platform, or a politically controversial organization, you're effectively cut off from the digital economy. No one elected them to do this. No public body oversees these decisions. It's private governance at a scale that rivals nation-states. So where does this go? Right now, Visa and Mastercard are betting that the future of money is digital, global, and runs through them. They're not wrong. Cash is disappearing. In Sweden, less than 10% of transactions are cash. In China, it's digital wallets. In the US, younger generations barely carry physical money. And as money becomes more digital, the power concentrates. Visa and Mastercard aren't just payment processors anymore. They're data companies. Every swipe, every tap, every transaction is a data point. They know what you buy, where you buy it, how often, and how much you spend. Aggregated and anonymized, sure, but it's still the most detailed map of consumer behavior ever created. That data is worth more than the fees. Now, there are challenges. Crypto tried. Bitcoin was supposed to be peer-to-peer, no middlemen, but it's too slow and too volatile to replace Visa. Stablecoins might have a shot, but they still need on-ramps and off-ramps, and guess who controls those? China built its own system. UnionPay is now bigger than Visa in terms of cards issued, but it only works in China's sphere of influence. Central bank digital currencies are coming. The Federal Reserve is exploring a digital dollar. The European Central Bank is piloting a digital euro. But even if governments launch their own digital currencies, they'll still need a network to move them, and building that network from scratch would take decades. Visa and Mastercard know this. They're already positioning themselves as infrastructure partners for CBDCs. In other words, even if the government creates the money, Visa and Mastercard might still control how it moves. Here's the thing that no one wants to say out loud. Visa and Mastercard have built something that's too big to replace and too essential to fail. They are the plumbing, and no one thinks about plumbing until it breaks. Governments rely on them. Banks rely on them. Businesses rely on them. You rely on them. And because they sit in the middle of every transaction, they have leverage that most companies could only dream of. They're not a monopoly in the legal sense. There are two of them, after all, but they operate like one. Same fee structures, same rules, same market dominance. And the uncomfortable truth is this: as long as digital payments are the default, and as long as there's no credible alternative, they can charge whatever they want. You can't boycott them, you can't vote them out, you can barely even see them. So the next time you tap your card and it works instantly, just remember, someone, somewhere, just made 2.5 cents. And they'll make it again on the next transaction. And the one after that. And the one after that.